and welcome to Real Horror Case Files, where I, Salva, tell you all about the most horrific and terrifying true crime and paranormal stories from around the world. Joining me, as always, is my co host, Chantal.
Hi, everyone.
How are you? Are you ready for today's episode?
I guess I don't even know what
You
today's
don't know what
episode is
today's
about.
episode is, and I did say that oh let me shift my camera. Ooh, let me shift my camera over a bit. How about shift? Oh, wrong way. Okay, there we go. I'm centered now. um, I did tell you last episode that I was really excited about this episode.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, and
I
I
know. I know. Last episode we did Annabelle. I don't know about this episode.
well, well, this episode, this episode is a doozy. Um,
Okay, I'm
well,
ready. What is it?
there's no like trigger warnings or anything. I do want to say though that if you do decide to look up the photos that I'm going to be talking about today, Uh, it's at your own discretion. I'm just gonna leave it
Okay.
at that. There you go. I am
Okay.
not responsible for the images that you will see if you decide to look these up. So it's up to you.
You know what? I already have nightmares, so let's go for it. I had a
Well,
nightmare last night that one of the guys at our work put a pot on his head and then just started chasing us. But for some reason, that was really scary. I remember waking up and being like, "Oh my god, that was scary." Yeah.
you have the most, and we talked about this last episode about narcolepsy and how your dreams are really, really messed
Crazy.
up.
Yeah, I went to bed, and then I woke up like an hour later, was like, oh my god, that was such a scary dream. And then I rolled over and went back to sleep. And then when I woke up this morning, I was like, why was that scary? For some reason, I was scared, but it wasn't like a scary dream.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Anyways, today, it's sorry, I just got distracted by the squirrel in the tree outside my window. Anyways, I just saw something like black fly across, and I'm like, oh shit. No, it was just a squirrel. Um,
It's not
uh,
a demon, Sally. It's
it's
just a squirrel.
not, no. Today we are going to be talking about the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden and the infamous Lizzie Borden.
Oh my god, it's the Borden Axe murders! Ah!
Honestly, and we've had this discussion about how we want to do these shows, and when it comes to unsolved murders, I said I don't want to speculate who did it or who I think, like what I think happened, if people are still alive and it's still very much an open case. But with this one, everyone's dead.
Yeah,
So let's speculate all we
I
want.
ha- I love this cold case, I guess you could call it.
Yeah,
True
because
crime, I
it's
don't know what
still
to call it.
not,
But it's
yeah.
like it's so interesting because we know so much about it, yet we know so little about it. I'm like,
Yes.
oh goodness.
Because, I mean, we'll really get into it, but it's very much of like a he said, she said almost type thing.
Yeah.
Or like a, well, I thought I saw him, or, I don't know what happened to the dress, but,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's get into it because I'm excited.
Yes, let's. I'm excited.
So let's get into the life of Lizzie Borden. So Lizzie Borden was born Lizzie Andrew Borden on July 19th, 1860 in Fall River, Massachusetts to Sarah and Andrew Borden. Now, Sarah died um, when Lizzie was very young, and 3 years later, Andrew remarried Abby Durfee Gray in 1865. So, like, Lizzie was like 2 when her mom died. So,
That's young.
that is very young. And I think back then, like, if you had young kids, it wasn't very taboo to, like, wait very long before remarrying just because you needed
Yeah.
someone to like take care of your kids,
Gender
especially if
roles
your
were
kids were that
very
young.
different back then.
Yeah, so I would think waiting 3 years after Lizzie after his wife had died to remarry was a pretty long time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about like the marital relations of that time, but that seems like a long time compared to other people
Yeah.
we know of who
Mhm.
had spouses passed and then get remarried.
Like usually
Like,
it's months.
yeah.
So it was a pretty long time. But Andrew himself, he was a very successful businessman. And they were pretty well off, and he was able to take care of Lizzie, her older sister Emma, and their stepmother Abby, as well as a few servants. Now Lizzie herself, she was very popular and she volunteered a lot, but her father was very opposed to the idea, and they disagreed on quite a lot of things, especially money. Um, her and her sister didn't have a very good relationship um, with their father and their stepmother. And they would actually just call their stepmother Mrs. Borden and not address her as stepmother or mother. Despite, like, Lizzie was 3. No, she was 5 when Andrew had remarried because she was born in 1860 and he remarried in 1865. So, all of those years she never called her mother or stepmother.
Yeah, but to be fair, 5-year olds are a lot smarter than people think, so she
Mhm.
probably knew that this woman wasn't her mother.
Yes.
And depending on how this woman chose to raise them, they probably didn't see her as a maternal figure. So I could
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
why some people, maybe them, didn't really see her as their mother or a stepmother or anyone in that kind of role.
Well, they actually worried that their stepmother's family would step in and try to take their father's money and they would be
Well,
left with nothing.
there you go. There are concerns all around.
So, I mean, and I'm just setting up the scene for like how their life was before the
Hmm.
murders happened, just to kind of give everyone an idea of um maybe some possible motives towards them. I'm not saying it was Lizzie
Hmm.
because I don't know if it's Lizzie, to be quite honest with you.
I mean, to be
After doing
fair,
this,
I mean, from all the, like, I mean, obviously all the paranormal shows that I watch and a lot of the history shows that I watch, I don't think it was Lizzie.
no, I don't know. I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later on, but that's everyone. The main thing is like Lizzie. That's
I mean,
the
they made a whole song about it.
Lizzie Borden took an axe,
Took
gave
an
her
axe,
father 40
father,
whacks. Yeah, something like that.
and
We
when
know the
she'd seen
song.
what she had done, she gave her mother 41 or
41.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um anyways, but so I'm just trying to set up the scene because Lizzie for the longest time and still is um the number one suspect of this case. So, I'm just trying to lay out the groundwork for everyone.
Yeah.
Um so they were very worried that their stepmother's family was going to come in and take their father's money after he had died. And because I think Andrew was an older gentleman, he wasn't like youngish. He was an older gentleman.
Hmm.
But Andrew was very careful with his money. Like he would be considered a penny pincher, um, if there was any, and it was a very controversial topic in their household. So, according to one source that I found, Andrew had actually gifted a house to Lizzie's half sister, but not her and Emma. And that was probably one of the biggest fights that they had was like, you're gonna give our half sister something, or I think it was something to do with Abby's uh sister or something like that, or
Hmm.
it's something to do with Abby's side where Andrew had gifted them a house, and Lizzie and Emma, her sister, were very much like, why are you giving them a house and not us? Like, we're your children.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I think I'd be pretty mad too. I don't know if I'd murder anyone, but I'd be mad. I wouldn't be happy because I'd be like, yo, you raised me.
Yeah.
Why are you not, helping me out? What did I do to you? Type of thing, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So I mean that was just like the I guess the main fight that they had, but it was always about money. They never got along.
Yeah, I could understand
Yeah,
that.
because
But
I
I mean,
think
like,
in Lizzie
at
and
the
Emma's
same time,
eyes,
I'd be like, yeah, it's your money, do what you want. But I'd
mhm.
also be like, hey, like, what's up? Why does
What's
she get
going
a
on?
house? Yeah, what's going on? But then at
Yeah.
the same time, I'd just be like, it's your money, you do what you want.
Yeah. But I
But
think
also,
to
things were different
Lizzie,
back then.
yeah, I think to Lizzie and Emma's point too is they were rich. Like they were
Mm-hmm.
very well off. And they're like, why can't we enjoy it while we're still here? Like, what's the point of trying to save up if, we're all gonna be dead by the time we get to enjoy it? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So I think they wanted to, and they were very popular in town. So I think they wanted to be seen as a high class society family.
yeah, because status kind of was very important back
Yes,
then.
at that time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so that was their life, basically. Let's get into the murders. Okay.
let's.
I created a timeline of
Okay,
the
I'm excited.
days leading up to and the days after. So,
Okay,
on August 3rd, 1892, Lizzie tried to purchase, and I'm gonna butcher this. She tried to purchase prussic acid, which is a poison that's kind of like cyanide. And for those of you who don't know, cyanide basically, something is laced with cyanide if you smell like almonds or like hold on, it came up when I was trying to look it up. Um, yeah, it smells like almonds, and that's how you know stuff is laced with cyanide. Um,
it's also a famous device in the movies. The spy takes the cyanide pill to keep the secrets from being
yes, yeah,
um, put out into the open.
yeah. So Lizzie tried to purchase some of that. Um, then on Thursday, August 4th, 1982, Mr. Borden left home for business, leaving his wife Abby, Lizzie, and their maid Bridget Sullivan at home. Emma at this time was away visiting other family members, so she wasn't at home at all.
Right.
When he returned home, he decided to take
Mm-hmm.
a nap on the couch. Chantal, I know you know what happens.
I know what happens,
And
and
for
I'm
those
like,
of you who
that was a bad move. Shouldn't have taken the nap.
I mean, he's a hard worker. He's a hardworking businessman. He's got
But
to take a
also,
nap.
I mean, I understand. I take a nap like every day. Life is tiring.
Yes. So, at about 11:15, Lizzie discovered her father dead, repeatedly struck in the head with a sharp object, and this is according to her testimony.
Could you imagine how traumatizing that would be? I mean, let's say she didn't do it. How traumatizing it would be to find your family like that.
Here's the thing though. I think this is like at fault. Well, I wouldn't even say it's Lizzie's fault. People react differently to trauma. Like they handle trauma
Mm-hmm.
differently and very traumatic circumstances differently. So I think the way that she handled herself, like finding the bodies during the court hearings and all that, I think people associate that as her being like this cold-hearted, like has no emotion at all, and automatically assume that, oh, she has no emotion. She is doing this with a straight face.
Mm-hmm.
She must be the murderer.
Yeah, well, some people laugh during like serious situations because it's just their trauma response.
That's just how they deal with trauma. But you
Yeah,
also have to keep in mind this is the 1800s. So they don't understand any of that.
and they had a lot of emotional repression too.
Yes. Yeah. So I think Lizzie, her reaction to everything is maybe like her way of trying to like calm herself. And
Hmm.
because they were a public family, like they're a very popular family. They're very well off, I'm sure, and Lizzie was very popular. So I think she didn't want to overreact to give people, you know what I mean? Like she didn't
Like,
want
yeah,
to,
more to talk about than they already did.
yes, yeah, like she didn't want to really give people something more to talk about.
Yeah.
But I guess she did it wrong because they really did have something to talk about after all that. Um, so upstairs, Abby's body was found even more mutilated, and the examination said that she was killed an hour or so before Andrew. This is according to the coroner's examination. So
Mm. I
Lizzie,
wondered,
yeah,
back in the 1800s, right, when this took place,
mhm.
forensic science wasn't that great. So, how did they determine when somebody passed?
That is a
I
very good question.
that's something I've never researched
It is,
or any of
and
my history
even
courses have had to do, but it's like I always wonder like how did they know with like obviously they had some sort of way of telling, but with the limited technology that they had, how would they know? You know,
yeah, I
what
don't know.
techniques did they use?
I think they must have had like I really don't know, Chantal, because I'm researching another case right now.
Sorry, I always ask the hard questions.
No,
I'm
but
always
it's you wonder
I always
too,
ask the
like
questions you don't know that
how
you're
did
like, I don't know.
I really don't know, but like it's a good question because how would they do it before even DNA testing and all that kind of stuff? Like
Yeah.
how do they do all like it's just incredible to me. Um
Yeah, like
that
how like and I wonder too, what's the margin of error for their techniques too? Because like even now today, we have a margin of error with the techniques we use. So like what was the margin of error back in the day? Was it possible that she had passed after Andrew Borden and they just got the time wrong because of margin of error? Or like how accurate is that? These are the questions I have when we
but
think about these
and this
things.
is like I think one of the main reasons why people are so fascinated with this case is because there's so many margin of errors and so many like oh well he said she said type thing
Yeah,
that
and there was a lot
it's
of
like you really
questionable
don't yeah you
things that
really don't
happened.
know
Hmm.
because Abby Andrew could have been murdered before Abby,
Hmm.
but according to this they're saying that Abby had died hours before, about an hour or so before Andrew.
Right, and I wonder like how did they know that?
I don't know. I don't know. Great question. Again, I don't know. So Lizzie was in the house at the time of the
Hmm.
murders.
Yeah,
And this is where things get a little like, are you sure you're not the murderer type thing.
yeah.
Um, and Bridget, the maid, was in her room on the third floor, resting and apparently vomiting after eating spoiled mutton stew. Again,
Oh,
if you were in the house and these people were brutally murdered with an axe, how do you not hear anything?
but also if you're sick, I
Like,
don't know about
was
other
it just
people, but when
the
I'm not feeling
timing?
well, I will sleep through anything.
If
Like
you
I've
hear
had,
Chantel, if you hear someone
yeah,
give like yelling like a blood curdling yell,
but you don't know if he actually did yell.
and that's the thing. But I think a
Because
lot of
if he
people's
didn't
point
yell,
is a
but
lot of
if he
people
didn't yell, because typically when you're hit in the head really, really hard, you don't yell
He
blood
was also
curdlingly.
sleeping.
And he was also sleeping. So if he didn't yell, all you would have heard was the thumps, which is a little scary to think about.
But
But
if
if you're not feeling well, you're gonna sleep. You can sleep through that. I've been like sick before and slept through like
I guess so.
crazy thunderstorms before without even knowing that there was a thunderstorm.
Yeah, I guess so. But Abby was murdered in the second floor bedroom. She was on the third floor.
Yeah,
It
but
was on.
still,
I don't know, Chantal. I'm just trying to like theorize
I'm
here.
just
You're trying to
it
debunk
does.
me right now.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry because it's just I think about these things all the time because people are like, "Oh, she would have like woken up. She totally would have woken up." But I'm like, if she wasn't feeling well, when you're sick and your body's recovering, you sleep like
Mhm.
crazy and you can sleep through a lot of things. And especially because back in the day, who knows if like with the medicine that they had, if she took something, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to take I don't know. I don't know what they had. What was there? There were like eel pills or something. I don't know. Like I'm gonna
Mhm.
take these pills to help me like get better, and then it like is like a sedative, so it knocks her out. Like
I
there's
guess
so many
so.
unknowns that we don't know
But
about, and there's so
here's
many like things that could be the theories that are
yeah.
like possible. So I don't want to say like, oh, she should have woken up when we don't really know if
Mhm.
she could have.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to say she wouldn't have woken up if she could have. It's hard to it's hard to
It's
say. Like
it's
you know what
like
I
a
mean?
yeah, like there's so many things you can speculate here.
There's so many unknowns, too many unknown variables that it's hard to say whether
Yeah.
what could have happened
Yeah.
versus what really
So
happened.
if Bridget was on the third floor resting and vomiting, where was Lizzie said she was in the house. Where was she in the house?
Yeah, like that too.
Also, if Lizzie was awake, how come she didn't hear
How come she
anything?
didn't hear anything? But also not to like not to defend her, but I've heard loud bumps in my house before and have just been like, that was scary. I'm gonna sit here and not investigate. Like
I
there was one
guess.
time,
Yeah.
because in my basement we have guitars hanging along the wall,
Mhm.
um, which is now a bedroom. But the guitars are still there. And one day the rack that was holding the guitars kind of came loose because the head shifts that holds the guitar, and those kind of dropped a bit, and the guitars fell onto the bed and made a loud thumping sound. And I was in my room, and my mom came up to me. She's like, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm not going to go and investigate. I'm not crazy, like, bro." And she was like, "I want to know what it is." And she kept walking around, and then she was like, "I can't find anything. That's the source of the sound." And I was like, "Yeah,
I hope your mom I hope
I'm
your
not
mom was
about to go.
carrying a bat or
No,
something.
no, no." And it was quite loud too. And I was like, "No, I'm not about that. I'm not going to go hunting for it." And then finally she was like, "Oh, it was just the guitars." And I was like, "Okay, I'm glad I didn't go looking for it, but also I'm glad I know it wasn't a ghost."
Or
So
something
like,
worse.
if, I mean, yes, it was like, I mean, I don't even know how many times he got hit in the head. However many times he got hit in the head. And then to have her stepmother hit in the head
And
as
we will
well, lots of times.
yeah.
That's really weird. I don't know. To me, I'd be scared and leave the house and like go find help. But that's just me.
Mhm. It yeah,
But
again.
I wouldn't go investigating. Is my point.
True point, true point. Okay, so quick Google search says that Andrew was hit about 10 or 11 times,
Okay.
while Abby was hit about 17 or possibly more times than that. So
Yeah.
I know Abby was struck more times than Andrew, which to me suggests that maybe the murder was had more hatred towards Abby, because
Yeah.
the thing is, if this is a crime of passion and you're doing it because you're angry, you're just going away. right?
Yeah.
Like you have no, at that point your adrenaline is going through you so much that like you have no like comprehension really of how many times you're doing things, but all you know is like I hate this person so much that I'm going to just keep on doing it to get all of my anger out.
Yeah, the only thing is to do that, right? And I get adrenaline is a thing, but hatchets, axes, or whatever it was, they're not light, and that would be really heavy to, I mean, do once, but then to go take it downstairs and do it a second time.
Take it upstairs because apparently Andrew was murdered first and then Abby. So,
No, I thought
and
you said Abby and then Andrew.
no, Andrew was murdered first and then they said, oh, wait, hold
Yeah,
on.
yeah. You told me Abby was murdered first and then Andrew was murdered
Yes,
after.
sorry.
Yeah.
Abby was murdered first and then Andrew. Which, cause, and here's the other question too: how if Andrew was in the house when Abby was murdered, how come he didn't hear anything? But she could have been murdered before he even got home on the couch to sleep.
Oh, that's true.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
whoever killed, because there's no evidence that he went upstairs. He got home and slept on the couch.
Yeah.
Whether he did go upstairs or not, we don't know. But I mean, if he came home, went upstairs, and saw his wife lying dead on the floor, he probably would have, you know, got left and tried to get help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for him, I personally think Abby was killed before Andrew even got home.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I mean, she could have also been killed afterwards too. I mean, like, see, that's the thing. Like, we just don't know because it's weird that he like wouldn't be like, "Hey, I'm home." I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not in these people's shoes, so I don't know how they greeted each other. But he could have, like, why didn't he come inside and be like, "Hey, I'm home, wifey, kids, I'm home," you know?
It's a different time though, right? Like we don't know. We
But
really don't
still,
know.
like,
So
I don't know. It would seem weird to come home and like not see anybody. You know what I mean? Like, no wife, no kids, no maid.
but maybe he did saw Lizzie and he just thought, well, I guess that's sufficient enough. Someone knows I'm home.
Yeah. Or he could have seen his wife and like, "Hey, wifey, I'm gonna take a nap." She's like, "Cool, I'm gonna like go over here," and then he takes
I
a
think
nap, and
apparently
then
she
one
was
is murdered, other is
upstairs.
murdered.
So she was upstairs in the guest bedroom,
Hmm.
fixing the bed, is what they said that she was doing.
Right.
We'll get into it in a little bit. So
Unless he came, because like, there's just so many unknowns. Because he could have come home and been like, "Hey, I'm gonna take a nap," and she could have been like, "Oh, let me set up a bed for you," and then he sat down, fell asleep on the couch, and she got
no,
murdered.
there was another reason why she was fixing the bed upstairs, and I will get into it in a second.
Okay.
So there was no weapon found around the bodies, but there was an axe found in the basement that is the suspected murder weapon. Um, Also, Bridget around this, like on this day, was apparently reported seeing leaving the house carrying an unexamined parcel, whatever that means.
Okay, but that's not suspicious. People mail things all the time. It's the only way you can send things out in that time. They didn't have cars to drive out and go to your local Walmart to get it stuff.
Yeah, but if it's on the day and around the time of the murders, you're gonna
Yeah,
look
but
at that
that's
too. You're gonna look at
yeah.
that, Chantal. You're gonna tell me a police
Mm,
officer isn't gonna ask questions about that?
they're gonna ask questions, but I don't think that would be my main concern. That's all I mean. Like, sending a parcel isn't that suspicious. Like, that's just not that odd to me. I mean, I'd be like, "Hey, what are you mailing?" And they'd be like, "Oh, gumdrops or something." And I'd be like, "Okay, cool."
I
I wouldn't
mean,
look at it. I wouldn't look at it too closely unless the evidence took me there. I don't think.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they would question that and
I don't think
really
it's that
like,
suspicious. Well, in the context of
okay,
the time period, I don't think it's that suspicious. Like it would be
okay.
I feel like it would be one thing if it was like, oh, the parcel was dripping blood. Like what the heck? But it was just a parcel.
It was unexamined, so they don't know. It could have been.
Yeah, but
Who
like
knows?
why like you're not gonna like ship a bloody axe somewhere.
To get rid of the murder weapon. I don't know. Who knows? Who
Yeah, but
knows?
they found the suspected murder weapon. So like obviously it
Suspected
wasn't
murder
that.
weapon. They didn't say for sure that that was the murder weapon. It's
Yeah, but
suspected to be. Here's the
there were a
thing,
lot of
Chantal.
blunders in this. There were a lot of blunders in this case, so we can't say
Yes.
one way or the other whether it was or wasn't. But
Also, here's
I
the
also
thing.
don't think it's that suspicious to send a package.
The suspected murder weapon was an axe found in their basement. Now, really think about the times back then. Every single household had to have had an axe in their house to cut firewood, to light fireplaces, to be warm. Now, you look at the date, that doesn't make sense either way because this took place in August. But no, but you still would have had an axe in your house because for firewood.
Yeah, so
So
dude
I'm
could
just
get.
saying the suspected murder weapon was an axe found in their basement. They didn't say it was bloodied up or anything, and even if it was, maybe the murderer had cleaned it up really, really well and it was fine. But it's only a suspected murder weapon because it could have been something else. Could have been a
Yeah,
knife. It could have been a those big butcher knives.
yeah, which is why I'm saying like I don't think the parcel is too suspicious. It could have literally been anything, and just her sending a parcel is not, to me, not immediately suspicious. It's weird, but it's not suspicious. Is all I'm saying. Because
I'm just like,
I'm like, there's so many other things it could have been. Because
mhm.
like, why, why would you send mail after you just, you know, unalived someone? That's just weird to me. For that to be your first thought as a countermeasure, be a smart one though, actually. But I mean, not really, because you can trace that back to original sender.
You could.
So,
Yeah.
but I just think it was just a regular package, and it was just a coincidence.
I don't know.
Just because there's so many other things that make more
Yeah.
sense than them having a suspicious package that could possibly have
Mhm.
some weird stuff in it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I'm just laying out all the grounds here.
Yeah.
So a few days later, after the murders, Lizzie apparently burned a dress that she claimed was stained with paint.
Okay.
Now, police suspected Lizzie right away, but she was not taken into custody
Okay. I wonder why they suspected her. What made them think, ah, yes, Lizzie is the one?
because she said she was in the house when it happened and she just so happened to burn a dress that she said was covered in paint.
Yeah,
And
but
also, she had a hatred towards her father and her stepmother. I don't know, Chantal. What would
yeah,
make you think someone was
not that.
suspicious?
Not that. I wouldn't immediately be like, "Oh, she's the murderer."
Again, Chantal, it's the
I think it's weird.
1800s.
I
Again,
think it's
it's
weird, but I wouldn't be like, "Oh, she's the murderer."
Chantal.
I
When
would definitely bring
someone,
her in for questioning, no doubt, but I wouldn't be like, "Oh, jump to she's the murderer right away."
when someone dies,
Hmm.
they automatically assume. Well, okay, I'll just say when um, a married man dies, or when someone married dies, they
Hmm.
the first suspect that they have is the spouse. Then they also
Yeah.
look at the children because again, the children could also be the murderers.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it's that, like, I don't know. I think it's just this whole case is very much a they assumed one suspect, that so much so that they didn't even look at anybody else, and I think they like pushed their evidence to fit their theories rather than looking at where the evidence actually took them. Because
Mhm.
yes, it's weird that she burned that dress, but also if she was home and she didn't hear them being murdered, regardless of whether she had a good relationship or not, she'd probably feel guilty if she didn't do it, right?
Yeah.
She'd be like, well, I was right there. I didn't hear it happen. I found them. Trauma response. So she probably wasn't thinking clearly
Mhm.
and was like, oh, this dress is dirty. I need to get rid of it.
I guess. I don't know.
That
Again,
like
I'm
I said,
just
there's so much unknown. There's just so much unknown things that we don't know, and
yeah.
there's like so many theories that it could possibly be. Um, I know who I think did it. I know who I think did it.
I
Um, but
let's get yeah.
I can't say one way or the other because there's so many possibilities. You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like hard to point the finger at one person because you think about, let's say, like Lizzie as the
Mhm.
murderer, and you're like, well, the evidence fits, but it's also like they kind of made the evidence fit her,
I think so.
right? And then you'll look at somebody else because you'll think, well, this really weird piece of evidence, which is kind of crucial, doesn't fit her. And then you'll look at somebody else, you'll be like, but it fits this person, but everything else doesn't fit this person. You
I
know,
think
it's just
so.
weird.
I think so.
It's just weird. It feels very much like they they didn't let the evidence actually speak for itself.
Well,
Anyways, I
let's
have strong feelings about this case.
no, absolutely. And I love it. I love this conversation that we're having because it definitely like gives multiple sides and multiple perspectives and not pointing the finger at one particular person, even though we do know we do have our feelings about who we think it is.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about the trial. Now, here's
Okay.
the problem with this. Here's the other problem with this case,
Oh, the
Chantal.
trial was like a mess. I remember reading a bit about this. Like, oh god.
The problem with this is that of this case is that when people found out about the murders, everyone and everyone's cousins, uncles, sisters, brothers, neighbors just walked into the
Hmm.
house and tampered with evidence. They
Yeah.
obviously did it unintentionally, but
Because it
now,
was a very different time and they didn't have the same understanding of forensics as we did, but
yes, yes.
yeah.
And that is the huge issue with this case because literally anybody could have just picked up something and been like, well, I guess this is the murder weapon. I'll just put this in my pocket and give it to the police later. Or, and then they forget about it. And, next
Hmm.
thing you know, now they think that the murder weapon is an axe that they found in the basement. But, who knows? Again, who
Who
knows?
knows?
And that is the biggest problem with this case is that everyone went and just walked into the house and
Hmm.
tampered with evidence. And this case became very popular in the town of Fall River, mostly because the family was very well off, and they were people that they couldn't believe. The people couldn't believe that the family, like that, would be part of something so horrific. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's when you hear of like your favorite celebrity dying, it's like, well, no, you can't. They can't. They're not. They're like,
Yeah.
that was like they're seen as like this um ideal family, I guess I'll say, that everyone looks up to. So
Yeah, and it
pe
probably doesn't help the fact that the police probably wanted this to be solved quickly because of the popularity of the
yeah.
family.
And I think that's why people would just go up to the murder because they wanted to see, they wanted
Hmm.
to find out what was going on.
Which is kind of sad to think that that's like you're like, oh, somebody got murdered. Let's go take a look at the murder scene and walk through it, and like
That's
it's kind
yeah.
of yeah, that's kind of yeah.
So, on December 2nd, 1892, Lizzie was indicted and her trial had finally begun in June, but she did not take the stand. The testimonies and evidence was provided inconclusive,
Okay.
and Lizzie was acquitted of the murders on June 20th, 1893.
To me, that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I know that there was a lot of politics involved in this trial as well. Um, but at the same time, just from what we've heard of the evidence so far, it's like hard to say. I can't say 100% that it was her.
hmm and nobody else was arrested or tried for the murders, and the case to this day remains unsolved.
Hmm.
So let's get into the suspects.
Yes, let's get
The
into it.
first suspect is, of course, Lizzie.
Hmm.
She was supposedly there when the murders happened, which I think is why
I
the
could see why people would immediately suspect her, but at the
yeah,
same time, we don't know where she was in the house.
yeah,
Like, she could have been in the basement. I mean, I know that's where the hatchet or the axe was found, but she could have been like trying to look for something in the basement. She could have been on the third floor. She could have been, I don't know, anywhere, right? So it's
yeah.
like it's hard to like say.
But and these are questions too, is just to kind of maybe get into their heads of why they think it was Lizzie, is why was she buying poison the day before the murders?
See, I think she intended to use poison, but then somebody beat her to it. That's my thought. Like, she wanted him gone because he, was a bit of a penny pincher, and she thought she deserved more.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like she intended to use the poison, but somebody beat her to it,
Yeah,
is my thought.
I think so too. Or I think she was somehow involved, um, but
Not
not
the direct
yes,
perpetrator. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Also, why does she just burn her dress a few days after?
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing too, is like if you're not like that just makes you more suspicious, because you're like, the police will then look at you and be like, are you getting, is that really paint, or are you getting rid of a dress that's covered in blood?
Sorry,
Um,
you were saying it was suspicious that she
it's
burnt that
suspicious
dress.
that she burnt the dress, because then the police are gonna look at you and be like, was that really paint? Like, you said it was paint,
Yeah,
but
like I
was it
get
really
being
paint?
suspicious, but also at the same time we have to understand this was probably traumatic, and people
Yeah,
do weird things when they have trauma, but also people do really smart things to hide evidence as well.
yeah.
So there's like, there's a catch 22 there. Like, it could be, it could not be,
We
right?
will never know.
One
Um,
day, one day maybe we'll go and ask.
here's the other thing too, is it was alleged that
Hmm.
her father was physically and sexually abusive to her, and she may have hit a breaking point. But however, and this is a huge thing, there is very little evidence to actually support this. I'm
Right.
just putting out the theories out there.
Yeah.
But who knows? It could have happened. We don't, again, it's
Yeah,
all
there's
we
so
don't
little
know.
that we know for sure.
Yes. Yeah. We don't we do not know. Um she also feared that Abby's family would come and take her family's fortune, and she and
Hmm.
her sister would be left with nothing. So I guess maybe she had thought that if she got rid of Abby, then that would get rid of the problem. But then she's like, okay, well, if I get rid of Abby, then I gotta get rid of my dad, because
Yeah.
it
It's a messy situation.
it is, yeah, very messy situation. Author Ed McBain speculates that Lizzie was caught with Bridget having an affair with Abby. So,
So wait. So
by
sorry,
Abby, sorry,
Lizzie, and Bridget,
we're
and then
having,
Abby walked in and saw them and was like,
yes,
"What the
sorry, I
heck?"
worded
Okay.
that wrong. He speculates that Lizzie was caught with Bridget having an affair by Abby. And this is the theory that Lizzie and Bridget were lovers, but I
Which
don't
is
know. if that's
Which is
true or
funny
not.
because they did a TV show about this, which was my first introduction into this
Yes.
case. And in the show, that's what they posited as well, that Lizzie and the maid Bridget were together.
Which, you know, it could
But there's
happen.
also, it could happen, but also there's no real evidence to
There
support it.
is no evidence. So he believes that Lizzie killed Abby with a candlestick. And then
Okay.
when her father returned, she confessed to him, but then killed him with a hatchet.
But why switch the murder weapons, first of all? Because that's just one more thing to clean, but I guess if you're scared and don't know what to do. But also, like, why would he be on the couch?
She posed him there.
Yeah, but you would think that if she had to pose him, the patterns would change. Like, the patterns of being hit
Yeah.
would be different.
Again, Chantal, this is the 1800s, so
No, I know, but it's like
yeah.
it's just there's so much to think about because you would think that, like, when you hit someone and you hit them hard enough to, you know, unalive them,
Mhm.
there's going to be splatter, and that splatter, if you're in a specific position, is going to be in a specific spot.
Yeah.
So if you move them and pose them, then you would know that they were moved and posed.
Mhm. Again, all speculation.
Yeah, again, all speculation. Like it's hard to say because I mean, obviously, our sciences and forensic sciences and stuff
Yeah.
have progressed since then, but it's also just weird that that's a theory to me because, like,
Well, so
as
part of
far as
this,
I know, in all historical sources, like, I mean, relative historical sources that I've seen, there's nothing to suggest that Bridget and Lizzie were a thing.
there wasn't. No.
And it seems like this was just a theory that someone came up with as a possibility.
Yeah. Um well, and the other thing too is he also speculated that Bridget had later got rid of the hatchet, and that would explain her leaving the house later that day with the package in her hands.
Yeah, but then where did the second hatchet come from? Because they found one
Right?
in the basement, right? So
Yeah.
would Bridget have? So that'd be weird because if Bridget would have had to leave with the hatchet, come back with a new
But
one.
so a hatchet is more handheld, an axe is the one with the longer handle.
Yeah.
So maybe they had an axe in the basement and the hatchet was something that maybe they had next to the fireplace to cut smaller
Oh,
pieces
that's
of
true.
wood
I
to put next
guess.
to the fire to put in the fire.
I guess, but
But
then
you're right,
that
like
would be a weird looking package
yeah,
because
it
you
was
can't, like,
unexamined, they don't know.
it's hard to put, like, like, you would have to break the axe to put it into a package.
Again, we don't
Or
know.
you put it in a really long package and that's just really obvious. To walk out with a package that's like 4 foot long, I mean, I don't know axes. I don't think they're 4 feet long. But,
No,
a
but if
really
it
long
was a hatchet,
package.
it would be more like this big, I want to
Yeah, but
say.
if they found a hatchet in the basement.
No, they found an axe in the basement.
Oh, okay.
He's saying that she killed him with a hatchet.
Oh, okay, I see. I had it mixed up. I was like, they got rid of the axe? That's a really
Yeah,
long
yeah, no, no,
thing.
no. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, but yeah, still, that's just I don't know. I feel like that's bit of a
I think it's a
bit
bit of a
of a
stretch. I don't
stretch.
think, yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
theory, that's for sure, not my favorite theory.
yeah. Our second suspect. That again, Lizzie was the only one that was actually under trial or and nobody else was arrested for this case.
Which is, like, for me at least, a little bit odd because, like, it doesn't matter, like who we suspect. I feel like every single person who's involved should be looked at equally.
Mhm.
And it doesn't seem like they did that. It seemed like they focused everything on Lizzie, which is, yeah, odd. But
Yeah.
I understand why. It's the 1800s. Like, it's like they were like, we're going to go with the most obvious one. But at the same time, I'm very much like everybody should be looked at equally because everybody is
Mm-hmm.
equally a suspect because they could have done it.
Well, and here's the other thing that I think, again, I don't think Lizzie did it. And I think the reason why she must have been so calm throughout the whole thing is because she knows that she didn't do it and she's not going to back down with it.
And I feel like too, like especially because she bought the poison, she might have already come to terms with everything.
Yeah.
So she probably was like calm because of that.
Yeah. Because she was on trial for the murder of her father and stepmother with where the weapon was an axe weapon
Mm-hmm.
and
I feel like
she
she,
didn't do it.
yeah, I
And
feel
so
like she
she
had
was
some
calm.
intention,
Yeah.
but somebody beat her to it. At least that's what I feel.
Yeah.
And I feel that she was calm because she had already come to terms with the fact that
Yeah.
he was not going to be around.
Yeah. So our second suspect
I'm
is
excited.
John
Who's our
is
second?
yes, is John Morse. Now,
Oh, okay. I
here's
love
who
this
I
theory.
think did it. You want to know who I think did it?
I
Here's who
find
I
him so
think did it.
suspicious. He's so suspicious. Like, oh my god. Okay, sorry.
So, John Morse, he is the maternal uncle who rarely spoke to the family. Um, but he had business ties with Andrew. So,
Yeah.
because of this, he was staying in the house the night before the murders. I guess he had some business with Andrew, and so he just stayed at the house. There was a time between 9 and 12 of him not having any kind of alibi. And the
Yeah.
and and the alibi he did have was the doctor who was at the Borden house at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
So
like
he
okay, so like
lied about his
every
alibi.
everybody seems suspicious in this case, but to me, he is so suspicious. Like everything about him, like everything about this whole story is crazy to me. That fact that they didn't look at him as hard as they looked at Lizzie. Like whether she did it, whether he did it, it's just weird that they focused on one person when everybody else was like just as suspicious.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like that's crazy to me.
Yeah. So, according to Lizzie, Morse knew about Andrew's will and
Mm-hmm.
it gave him more motive to kill him since he had Morse had a failing livestock business, which Andrew was, I guess, involved in some kind of way. So,
Okay.
um, I'm assuming they had some kind of fight, and this really fueled Morse, and so
Mm-hmm.
he was also apparently a trained butcher and used a butcher's knife to kill them. Not a hatchet, not an axe, it was a butcher's knife because you can still do quite a bit of damage with a butcher's knife. Have you seen a
And
butcher's knife,
it's
Chantal?
yes, I have.
They
And it's
they're
much and even though they're huge, it's much more portable than like an axe or a hatchet.
yeah.
Like
Also,
he could have hidden that anywhere.
if he's a
And
trained butcher, who's to say that he just doesn't have those tools in his briefcase
yeah.
because that's just part
I mean,
of
I don't know what butchers do, but like I'm assuming they have their own knives that they take with them because that's like part of your business, right?
mhm. Yeah. So authors Rich Little and Beverly Falstad believe that John killed the Bordens within the hours that he was missing in his story. So, as I said before, he was a business partner with Andrew, and this is like this is part of like their in their book that they wrote that he was a business partner with Andrew and they had gotten into an argument because Morse had been losing money with the livestock business and
Mm-hmm.
out of rage he killed Abby while she was in the upstairs guest room that he was
Mm-hmm.
staying in and that's why I said she was in there getting ready or she was cleaning up because he was staying there.
Because he was staying the night, yeah.
So she was the one cleaning up the room so he killed her in that room.
Mm-hmm.
Um that he was staying in, and he left the house to go find an alibi. Now, Morse told the police that he was visiting his niece at the time of the murders and went back to the Borden house at about noon, but then the story later changed to be at 11:30 and then changed again to 11:20. So his story keeps changing.
Yeah, although time, I'm really bad with time, so I could understand the time constantly changing.
Sorry, I thought I heard something, but I'm gonna close my curtain for a second here because it's dark and it's like really creepy and I'm scared. Okay, sorry.
But like, yeah, like I'm really bad with time, so I'm like constantly changing time because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. But also at the same time, I just find it very weird that he left, went to his niece's house, and then came back in such a short amount of time. Because, like,
Yeah.
okay, it's the 1800s. They didn't have cars. Yes, they had like horses and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how long would that have taken him? Like, how far did his niece live? To go there, say hi, visit her, you know, maybe have a cup of tea. I don't know what they did to like visit. If it was just a hi, okay, cool, bye. But I'm assuming they would have had a conversation.
Yeah.
And then to make it back to the Borden house. So he said he left at what, 9?
Yeah.
So 9, 10, 11, that's 2 hours. So if he got
Yeah.
there at 11, 12 would be more believable to me because that's 3 hours.
Yeah.
But that's still like weird. Like it takes
That
me
was what
20
he
minutes
initially.
to walk
Yeah.
to the end of the street. I mean, not that long, but it takes me a bit to walk to the end of the street. It takes me a
Yeah.
couple minutes to walk to the end of the street. But to walk further than that to get to your niece's house, that
Yeah.
could easily be a 40-minute walk.
Mm-hmm.
So 40 minutes there, 40 minutes back. I mean, this is all speculation,
Yeah.
but like, you
It's
know what
just
I mean?
not
All
adding
this
up,
stuff,
though.
this stuff just takes time.
Yeah.
So like,
It's not
where did
adding
he?
up.
How did he do that so quickly? Unless she was like their neighbor.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just not adding up. So his niece told police that Morse had left as Dr. Bowen had arrived to her home to check on a sick family member, but Dr. Bowen was already at the Borden's house by 11:32 according to police on the scene.
So, oh, that's a mind. That's math right there.
So
Trying to
here,
figure out. So the doctor was at the house at 11:30, already proclaiming the Borden's dead.
yeah, like he had just
This
arrived to
got
the house at 11:32.
and this is why it makes like Mr. Moore's story so weird is that he was like, oh, 12. No, 11:30. No, 11:20. So he was there before the doctor got there.
Yeah.
So then he couldn't have possibly been there at 12.
No, because his niece said that the Moors had left just as um she told the police that Morse, her
Mm-hmm,
uncle, had
mm-hmm.
left just as Dr. Bowen had arrived to her home to check on a family member. And going back to
Oh,
your
okay.
theory about how long it takes people to travel back then, according to police, by 11:32, Dr. Bowen was already at the Borden house.
So then where was Morse? Where was he in that time?
We don't know. He had no alibi. He kept lying about who his alibi was, saying that it was the doctor when clearly it wasn't the doctor.
Yeah,
Because let's just say that the he left as the doctor was coming in, right?
yeah.
To his niece's house.
The doctor would have seen him and would have been like, yeah, I saw Morse
Yeah.
and he
But
was leaving.
if the doctor's saying I was at the Borden house, and if the police officers there were saying that he was at the Borden's house by 11:30,
Mm-hmm.
him saying that he
arrived at 12 the first time is really weird.
yeah,
And
and then
then,
change it to 11:30 and then change it again to 11:20.
because then if he, like, let's say it's 11:30, right? He would have gotten there and the police and doctor would be there.
Yeah.
If it's 11:20, he would have gotten there before they did, right? Or just as they were arriving.
But here's what I think too. If the police let it slip that, oh, well, you were there, so you saw the doctor there at 11:30 because the doctor got there at 11:30, he could have been like, "Oh, no, actually, I was there at 11:20."
Before anybody showed up. Yeah.
To cover his ass.
Yeah. See, this is why I think it's so suspicious. Every time I hear this story, I'm like, this man is so suspicious.
Yeah.
Because, like, didn't he also, like, go out of his way? Like, I feel like I remember reading something about him going out of his way to say hi to people and, like, learn their names so that he could have an alibi.
Yeah. I
Oh,
think
sorry, my
so.
stomach
I don't
is
think I have that in
growling.
my thing, but um
But,
yeah.
like, I remember, I think it was on one of the paranormal shows I was watching, but I also remember, like, researching it because I thought that was, like, really weird. But I don't remember what it was, but he went out of his way to learn people's names so that he could be like, yeah, I saw this person here at this time, so it couldn't have been me. Like,
Yeah,
that's
again, I
really,
don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
But
It's just, he seems super suspicious.
yeah,
Because so he's got so much missing time. His profession is something to do with
meat cleavers.
meat cleavers. Yeah. He had enough time easily to hide the weapon and to get any evidence on himself off and to, try to find an alibi. And he has so much missing time.
Mhm.
It's just so suspicious. Oh my god.
Yeah. So Little, the author, believes that Morris had to kill Andrew since he would have known it was him who killed his wife, and that was the motive why he killed Andrew. Um, Little also speculates that Morris was having an affair with Bridget, and he was sleeping in her bedroom the night he stayed with the Bordens. Now, Morris decided to go back early to the house to spend time with Bridget, but instead found Abby in the guest room, which I guess would cause him to kill her and then kill Andrew. Little believes that Bridget knew about Morris killing the Bordens and didn't say anything about it to hide their affair. I think that's a
That
more
that
plausible.
makes more sense to me than Lizzie and Bridget together.
Yeah.
But that makes so much sense.
And here's the thing. I don't think Lizzie would have been I don't think Lizzie wanted to really get involved with it because again, she didn't really like her father and she didn't really like her stepmother, so she's like,
Hmm.
"Okay, well, they're out of the picture, so that's it."
Which is why I believe that, like, Lizzie had intended to use the poison because, I mean, it's something we see in shows all the time, like, Forensic Files and, like, all those shows where they say that women tend to be less violent.
So
Women can
they
still be violent in their
yeah.
murders and stuff like that, but they tend to be less violent than men do. And this seems like a very violent crime. Not that she couldn't have been violent, but statistically,
Yeah.
women tend to be less violent. So
Mhm.
to me, it seems, especially because she went and bought the poison. What was the point of buying the
She
poison
didn't buy it.
just to use?
She tried to
Oh, she
buy it.
tried to buy it, but wasn't successful. But,
Yeah.
like, still, it's like it's weird to me that she had other options open to her,
Mhm.
and it's just very odd to go from, oh, I'm going to poison someone, to I'm going to use a hatchet,
Yeah.
like, immediately, like, within a day. You know what I mean?
Less
So
than
I think
24 hours.
her intention was to use the poison,
Mhm.
and then Morse comes along and
Beat
does
her
the
to
deed,
it.
which is why Lizzie wasn't that shocked. I find why she was so calm was because she had already come to terms with the fact that this was going to happen one way or the other. It just so happened that somebody else took care of it.
Yeah.
not to be crass, but
Yeah.
I feel
But
like
yeah.
that's at least what I think. I think she was like fully prepared to do it herself, but then someone else
Mhm.
beat her to
Yeah.
it, and that's why she wasn't as, emotional as some people probably
Mhm.
expected her to be.
Yeah. So the third suspect is Bridget Sullivan. The theory behind it is that she worked with Lizzie, um, to help her possibly even take off the dress, change quickly. Because you have to think back then, taking off on uh, those
But
dresses.
yes, it was a lot of work, but it was very possible to do it yourself.
Yes, but if
It
you
was,
wanted
it
to do
was,
it, if you wanted to do it quickly,
yeah, but you could still take it off quickly.
yeah.
Because it's the 1800s. A lot of the times, especially in houses where you're not like the 1%, where you're not super rich, like, yes, they were rich, but they weren't like high society rich,
Mhm.
and they only had one maid. So most likely these girls, yes, they could have had help from Bridget, but most likely they knew how to put on and off the dresses themselves.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that Lizzie could have done it on her own. But it's
Mhm.
also very possible that Bridget could have helped her just for speed. Like, it's
Yeah.
hard to say one way or the other. I keep playing devil's advocate, which sucks because I hate playing devil's advocate. But yeah,
But sometimes you have to with these cases because you want to look at
yeah.
all sides, right?
Because it's like it's important to understand that, yes, it, like, a lot of the times these dresses were difficult to put on and off without
Mhm.
help, but it was also very possible to do it without
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. Um so she was again recovering from an illness when the murders happened. Um why didn't she hear anything when it was happening if she was in the house? And we've already talked about this, so we're not going to
I mean, we
rehash
already
it,
talked
but
about
yeah,
we
yeah,
already
at
talked
great length. And
we already talked about this.
the other question with Bridget is, what was she carrying in the package? That, it could have been a hatchet. Who knows? Again, we don't know.
It literally
It
could have
could
been
have been,
anything.
it could have been the butcher's knife. Here's what I
It
think.
could have been the
I
butcher's
think,
knife.
I think she was working with Morse. And if Morse had killed Abby and Andrew with the butcher's knife, maybe he gave it to Bridget to take away.
See, that's what I feel. Like, as much as I'm like, oh, this package isn't really suspicious, um, it's weird that like
It's
there
weird
was
that
no
they
murder
pointed
weapon, that
out.
it was just gone. And
Yes.
it's so weird that it's a notable point that people
Yes.
noticed,
Because if it wasn't
right?
that notable, it wouldn't be here
Yeah,
in this story. You know what I mean? Like if
yeah,
it was for them to say she was carrying a suspicious package out of the house the day of the murders, like that has to be something.
yeah.
And I think she was covering Morse's ass and taking the butcher's knife out of the house.
Because, see, I think it's very plausible that she didn't hear the murders. Whether I think that's what actually happened,
Or she knew that it was going to
no.
happen.
I don't think that she just didn't hear the murders. I think it's possible she didn't, but I feel that Lizzie wasn't involved. Sorry, my stomach is like growling. Yeah, so I, yeah, I don't think Lizzie was directly involved. I feel like Lizzie was like trying to do her own thing, and then this just so happened to happen. But I think it's more likely that Bridget and Morse were in on it together,
Hmm.
because it's so weird how like everything lines up. Like, yes, it's weird that Lizzie was there and didn't hear anything, but she could have just very well have just kept her mouth shut. Like, she
Yeah.
could have seen something, heard something, and was just like, so it's just everything aligns too nicely to Morse, because he, to me, is the most suspicious one. Like, Lizzie, yes, has like a lot of things that she did that were suspicious, yes, but I find Morse to be way more suspicious than her,
Think
in my
so
opinion.
too. The missing time, the changing stories, the lying.
Yeah, because as far as I know, Lizzie kept to one story,
She did.
right?
Her story
And
didn't
like,
change.
and we don't know where she was in the house. She might not have even been like inside the house. She could have been on like the back porch and not heard anything. She could have been just outside real
Mm-hmm.
quick, and that's when the murders happened, and she popped back and she could have been in the basement. I mean, I digress because like we don't actually know,
Yeah.
but like it's just, and also as far as I know, this house is fairly large, so it is quite possible that she heard like thumping and was like, eh,
It's an old
someone's just
house.
chopping something, somebody's chopping wood, it's an old house, I'm hearing
Yep.
the neighbors not inside the house,
It could be so many things.
it could have been so many things that she just like didn't even think about and just disregarded,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
But like to have Morse change the story first of all, but also have like his story be such a short timeline of him leaving the house, doing stuff, and then coming back. And then also the fact that he's a butcher is odd.
Yeah. And he had a fight with Andrew.
He had a fight
And
with Andrew.
yeah, he could have been caught having the affair with Bridget by Abby, and that's what was the ticker.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want anyone to know.
Yeah, I feel like it was him very strongly.
Yeah.
But also that being said, I feel like it could have really been any of them. We just don't have enough evidence.
Yeah.
But I strongly feel like it was more so him than any of the others.
Yeah. So after the murders, Bridget moved to Montana and got married, and she never returned to Fall River. Um, Morse moved to Iowa and also never returned to Fall River.
Okay.
Lizzie and Emma inherited a significant portion of their father's estate, and they purchased a home together not too far from the Borden house, and she changed her name to Lisbeth. This is also why I think Morse and Bridget did it, because they moved state and never came back.
Mm-hmm.
If Lizzie really did it, and
Why stay?
why stay? You're gonna move like a couple streets down and not
Yeah, and
and live the
it
rest of
wasn't
your
that
life.
far.
It wasn't that
Yeah.
far. It was only a couple streets down. You're going to move a couple streets down to where the murders happened and just live the rest of your life as if nothing happened. That's why I don't think Lizzie did it, because if you really did, if she really did do it, do you really think she's going to live the rest of her life like not thinking about it anymore? I
Yeah, she's
think
gonna walk past that house every day.
I think a part of her would still feel guilty about it to the
Yeah.
day she died.
Yeah.
So for Bridget and Morris to both pack their shit and leave and never come back, that's more suspicious to me.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
you're like, that is done. I'm never coming back. I'm never looking at that again.
Because
Because if I do, then I'm just gonna break down and confess or something,
because
you know?
Lizzie would have had to see that house like for the rest of her life.
She
And I feel
also
like if she did it, if she did murder them, that would be such a hard thing to see because of the guilt. I mean, I'm assuming she's got guilt.
yeah. But and here's the thing, she was still seen as guilty by a few of her neighbors. So if you really are guilty and you want to get rid of you want to step away from that ridicule, you would move state
Yeah,
like
why would you
Morse and
move
Bridget
down the
do
street?
if you were really guilty.
Yeah.
So she was still seen as guilty by a couple of the neighbors, so her reputation kind of fell through the cracks there. And she was solidified when she was accused of shoplifting in 1987. And that kind of was,
Wait. 1987?
sorry, 1897.
I was
My
I
my
was like
dyslexia is kicking in.
I
It's
was like
late. I've been
I
up
was doing the
since,
math in my head and I
yeah,
was like, wait a minute. 18, what was it? 1803 to
yeah. This is a long time. She's over 100.
to 1987. That's geez, I want what she was drinking. Like
Yeah.
vampire?
She did live a very long time though. So in 1905, Emma moved out of the house and the two sisters never spoke because I guess maybe there was a rift there. Maybe Emma did suspect that it was Lizzie and they argued about that a little bit.
I feel like that would be hard as a family member because you wouldn't know, right?
You wouldn't know.
It'd be very hard, especially since you weren't there, you don't know the truth of what happened. It's very hard, especially since there's so much unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like that would cause like a rift.
Yeah. Um, and Lizzie died of pneumonia on June 1st, 1927. And Emma died days later in Newmarket, New Hampshire.
Okay.
So, the Lizzie Borden house is haunted.
Yeah.
So it is haunted by Abby and Andrew Borden. Apparently, if you leave money on the dresser, Andrew Borden will leave you alone for the night. If you take the money, that's a whole other scenario right there. Footsteps can be heard, children's laughter, and a ghostly face on the wall in the basement is also seen. And Lizzie also allegedly haunts the house.
Because does she haunt her other house as well?
I think so.
That's kind of cool. She can like bounce back and forth. She can go visit her parents, and then when she's wants alone time, she can go have some alone time.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, I don't know if she's got
we talked
other
about this during the
spirits.
Casa Loma episode. Is like, what keeps you? If you're a ghost, you could just go wherever you want.
Yeah. Yeah, like in the Castle episode, we were like, maybe they go up and visit the family and have like, a chat and then go back to the tunnels. Maybe
Yeah.
Lizzie goes to chat with her parents because like, they're there and she can talk to them if she wants. And then just bounces back to her house. I don't know if there's any other ghosts in her house, maybe there is. Bounces back there when she, doesn't want to talk to them anymore.
Yeah, who knows? So that is the end of this episode.
So they just haunt.
They just
They don't
haunt.
have they don't have something specific that they do, like, I don't know,
Well, Andrew Borden with
stick
the
their
money on
fingers
the
in your
dresser.
ears.
Listen, if a ghost stuck a finger in my ear, I'd leave. That's it. I'm gone. That's it. We're done.
Not gonna lie, I don't think I would notice. I feel like I would just be like, oh, my hair is in my ear. you know?
My ear.
I'd be
God.
like, oh, my hair. Goodness. Like,
um.
whenever you get like a piece of hair like poking your ear and you're like, oh, get out of
Yes. Yeah.
there. Yeah, I feel like I probably think it was just hair, but I mean, so like none of the other ghosts like do anything.
No.
Morse doesn't haunt them.
No, Morse is not there.
Goodness, I had
Yep.
questions for him.
Don't we ever? Yeah.
one day, when we're elderly and bored, maybe we'll go visit and be like, hey, we want answers.
We would like answers. Thank you. Um. And that is it for this episode. Leave a comment below to who you think did it. I'm
Yeah, I
curious
mean,
to
I
see what
know
everyone thinks. I'm curious to see what people's theories are. Maybe there'll be, if we'll have
a
enough of
theory we
them.
haven't heard. Yeah.
Yes, if there's enough of them, we'll do like a whole special episode on what listeners and viewers think, because I think
I mean,
that's also really
I know
interesting.
what we
Maybe we
think
missed,
happened.
yeah, and maybe we missed something important, and you can throw that in the comments as well, and we will make sure that we rectify that.
Could you imagine the plot twist if it was like the doctor or someone?
Dun dun dun.
Like, I mean, I don't think it was, but could you imagine
Yeah,
if someone like in the comments was like, "Hey, actually, the doctor was found lying four
yeah.
times during this whole entire case." I mean, I
Who
still think it was
knows?
Morse, but I
Yeah,
mean,
who
there's
knows? Who
just so much
knows?
unknown that there's so many theories that it could possibly
Yeah.
be.
Anyways, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe. And we will see you next time. I am a little scared about next week's episode. Not gonna lie.
I don't know what
It's
next week's episode is.
I will give you a hint.
Okay.
It is the inspiration behind a movie.
Is it The Exorcist?
I don't know.
Or is it Amityville Horror?
I don't know. I'm not gonna say because there are quite a lot of stories that are bait that are in
Is it
that
is it The Conjuring?
I don't know, Chantel. We'll find out next week.
Oh no, I don't want to wait that long.
We might not do. You might not have to because we'll just record right after this. But for those of you listening and watching, you'll have to wait till next week to get that episode. So like, share, subscribe, follow us on social media at Silver Magic Studios, and thank you for listening and watching. Until next time, toodles.
Toodles.